Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of what I'm going to call the weekly Space Engineers Survival Tutorial Series. So unfortunately, it looks like life is going to basically allow me to do this once a week, and so hopefully every Saturday I'll manage to get a new one put out and published. So in last week's first episode, we looked at the setup of the game, some of the different settings you might want to play with and tinker with. Went through planetfall, landing on our Earth-like planet, and did a tour of the survival pod and our escape pod here. This week's video, basically we want to look at putting together what I'm going to call a basic survival platform, which is going to include a power supply, a method for refining raw materials such as rock and ores into useful materials, a way to take those useful materials and turn them into components, and lastly, we're going to look also at some power storage for our fledgling base that we're going to be starting with. So I'm going to go ahead and get back to first person and restore my HUD. And the first thing I'm going to take a quick look at is the toolbar. Now, Space Engineers has 9 different toolbars with 9 different slots, so you can get 81 different things queued up at once to utilize, which I've found is usually more than plenty for doing what I'm doing. So to do a little bit of reorganization of my toolbar, I'm going to go ahead and hit the G key. Okay, now, when we set this video up, or when we set this game up last week, I mentioned something called progression, and I actually went in and turned that off. So to kind of give you an overview of what progression is, I'm going to go up to this tab here at the top, click on that, and what this shows, it shows all of the blocks that are available, except we have this kind of branching tree flowchart sort of thing. So what this indicates is if I want to build, say, a light or a spotlight or some of this neon tubing, or if I want to build a medical room, the first thing I have to build is the basic assembler. Okay, so if I had progression on right now, all of these things would be locked because I have not yet built a basic assembler. I would not be able to build any of these components. So I have to build that basic assembler first. Then that would allow me to build basically the blocks in this area and the blocks in this area. If I wanted to continue on and build a speaker or a sound block, a projector, any of these LCD components, I would have to build something in this area. So I'd have to say build a light, and then that would unlock all of these blocks. Okay, some people like the challenge of having to do it that way, others don't. I prefer not to. I just like to be able to have everything available at once to build, but that's kind of a personal preference. So whichever you'd like to do, if you want to work your way through that progression, you know, that is certainly something that you can do. So going back to the blocks, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear slots 5 through 9 on my toolbar by just using the right mouse button. Okay, and then I'm going to add to the toolbar some of those basic building blocks. So we're going to start with basically just a light armor block. So this one's already there, the light armor block, the most basic shapes of that. I'm going to go ahead and add to this. So I've got this light armor slope here. We're going to grab that. Light armor corner. The tip. And then this one. And lastly, the one that's more curvy. Okay, so there's the 5 basic armor blocks that we'll can use to build our base. Now, unfortunately, there's one other that would be kind of nice to put on there, and that are the armor panels. These are very flat. They can actually, if you're really resource strapped, you can build your base using these, but the more, I guess, traditional way to do it, for lack of a better way to say it, is to use these larger armor blocks. Now, these blocks come in 2 different varieties. They're light and heavy versions. The biggest differences being their weight, kind of as the name implies, how durable they are, and the amount of materials they cost. The more materials or components that you put into a block, generally the more durable it is. So if we compare the basic heavy armor block to the basic light armor block, so notice this one requires 25 steel plates to be fully constructed, whereas this one requires 150 steel plates to be entirely constructed, along with 50 metal grids. Okay, so starting out, the light armor block is our way to go, because we're not going to have access, especially to those metal grids which require cobalt, which is a resource we don't have yet. Okay, so there is our first toolbar set up with some of those basic armor blocks. I'm going to cycle to the next one. I can do this in one of 2 ways. I can use the period or comma keys on my keyboard to cycle back and forth through the different toolbars. Or if I want to go directly to a specific toolbar, I can use Control and push the number for that toolbar. Okay, so those are the two different ways we can cycle through our toolbars. So I'm going to cycle to the second one. Now, one thing I like to do on all my toolbars is I like to have the welder as the first spot. You use the welder so much. You place a block. Generally, the next thing you do once you place that block, you break your welder out and you weld it up. So I find that very handy just to have the welder in the first slot of every toolbar that I populate. Now, for the second toolbar, we're going to need some power. So we're going to go ahead and put some power blocks on the second toolbar. Now, you notice there are several of them here. First one I'm going to grab is the wind turbine. Now, notice there are two versions of the wind turbine. Now, depending on if you've gotten any DLCs or not, this twin blade turbine might not be available, but this one will always be available. Okay, so we can grab that, slide it down to slot number 2. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the solar panel, hydrogen engine, and reactors. Okay, so there are the 4 power production options that we have, and I'll talk about the pros and cons of each one of them here eventually. And then the last one I'm going to put on this one is the battery, so as a means to store the juice that we're generating. All right, so there is kind of toolbar number 2. That's going to be sort of basically focused on our power generating blocks. Now, moving on to the third one, I'm going to grab that welder once again. For this one, I'm going to go to the production blocks. Now, I'm going to begin by grabbing a basic assembler and a basic refinery, so I'm going to add those there. Now, eventually, what we'll do is when we're ready, we'll actually replace those with the full-blown assembler and the full-blown refinery. But for now, we're just going to focus on the basics of both of those. Okay, and so that's all I'm actually going to go ahead and grab from this particular batch. And so the next thing I'm going to do is click Home, click on our search menu, and type in CON. What I'm looking for here in this batch is I'm looking for our conveyor blocks. Conveyor blocks are essentially our piping. They're what's going to connect all the different things together and allow raw materials and components to move from one thing to another. So here, I want to grab this block here. This is a conveyor junction. And notice this particular one with that plus sign also gives us access to, from our toolbar, gives us access to our straight tube, a curved tube, a T-tube, conveyor sorter, which we'll look at eventually once we get a more elaborate setup. Then we have reinforced versions of the different tubes, and finally a conveyor cap. Okay, next up we need a connector. Now what the connectors do is it allows us to, as the name kind of implies, it allows us to connect our ships to our base. This is useful for charging the batteries or charging the batteries on the ships, and also allows us to transfer components from the ship to the base. So if we've been out mining and have a bunch of ore, we can get that ore to our refinery. And then last up, we're going to grab the cargo container. Okay, so the large grid version of the cargo container has a small version and a large version. Okay, and it basically just varies in terms of how many materials it requires to make it and how much stuff it can hold. Okay, so there is toolbar number 3. So that covers pretty much everything we need for our basic survival platform. We have our basic building blocks, we have our power blocks, and we have some production and storage blocks available to us. Okay, so now I'm going to clear that by just hitting the 10 key on my toolbar, and I'm going to flip to toolbar number 1. Now it's time to get doing some mining. So if we go over to our survival kit and click on to this large port there, see its inventory, and then go up here to the production tab. So I believe I looked at this last week, but just as a quick recap, here are all the different things that I can make in terms of components that I can make in my survival kit. Now, I have no raw materials, so I can't very well make any of those things just yet. But if we go up to this thing here on the lower left-hand side of our line, we have our ingots. Okay, so this basically will produce ingots from stone, and stone is the only thing that your survival kit can refine. And for each set of batch of ingots you want to make, it's going to require 100 units of stone in order to do that. So we're going to have to start digging. So we're kind of in luck with this one. Now, it's gotten kind of foggy here as we've been working. So if I just started going ahead and digging right here, I'd be getting topsoil. Okay, topsoil is not very rich in terms of getting stone and harvesting stone. You don't really start seeing a lot of good stone until you get below that topsoil surface. However, with the area we're in, I'm going to flip on my lights. If I walk over here just a little bit, the stone is now above the surface. We've lost our topsoil and we now have just some raw stone. So I'm going to actually dig my hole here. We're actually not too far away from our survival pod in this case. Break out my drill. So the drill has two basic digging modes. The first one, if you do a left click, it will dig, remove a certain amount of voxels, and it will produce raw materials. It'll produce the stone for you to pick up, which you can then take back to your survival kit and refine. If you just want to dig a hole, you can use the right mouse button, and what that does is it will remove a larger portion of voxel material, but it will not give you any kind of materials in return. It's simply meant to dig a hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pick a spot. I'm going to hit C to crouch to initially start my hole, aim down just a little bit, and then while I drill, I'm going to hit the F key, because what's going to happen is the stone's going to kind of pop off and spray in different directions, and I want to use the F key to try and collect it, hopefully catch it before it drops and rolls down the hill and ends up down there who knows where. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of take a look at my orientation on the cliff side, bend down, and start hitting that button. Okay, notice my inventory bar there indicating how full up I am is starting to fill. Not quite halfway yet. Do a quick scan. Did I miss anything? That doesn't look like it. So I kind of ran out of stuff to drill, so I'm going to re-aim myself, push forward, and continue that drilling process. Again, holding onto the F key, hopefully catching most, if not all, of that stone that comes off of it. Okay, take a quick look around. Notice, yep, see there went one right there. Just rolled on down the hill. So somewhere down that hill, I'm sure there is stone that I have missed as I've been digging. So maybe we'll find a treasure trove before all is said and done. But I'm still not quite full yet. So I'm going to move on in, continue to use that F key to hopefully catch as much stuff as possible. Now I'm full. Now you may or may not have heard it. I doubt I turned the sound down, but my suit just basically said, hey, you're full. And so now it's time to head on back to the survival pod. Run over here, click here, and then just drag and drop. Oops, wrong spot. Drag and drop that into the survival kit. Notice it only holds roughly 2,700 kilograms of stone, so I got a little bit left over in my inventory because I can carry more than that. Now I'm going to go to production, click on ingots. Now if I click on this just once, left click it, that will produce one batch of ingots. And notice there are 4 different things it produced. I've got gravel, which is primarily a waste product. I have some iron, I have some nickel, and I have some silicone. So those are the 4 bits of raw materials, or refined materials, I guess, that we get out of stone. Now if I want to refine a little faster, if I go up and hold Control and click, I will queue up 10 units of ingots to queue. So that's just going to go ahead, it's going to run its course and do the production. While it's working, I'm going to step back, move that stone back in there to get rid of all the stuff in my inventory. And notice it's completed and I have more. If I want to queue up even more at a time, I can hold down Shift and click, and I will queue up the ingots in a batch of 100. And this applies also for any components over here. You can do the exact same thing. Finally, if I really want to queue up a big batch, I can go Control Shift and click, and that will queue it up in units of 1,000. Okay, so if you really want to build a lot of stuff, you can queue them up in units of 1,000. Now notice I'm out of stone. Okay, I have 81 kilograms of stone yet left, but I need at minimum 100 to trigger the production of the ingot. So The queue is still going to be there, but I have to supply it with some more stone. So we'll head back over to our hole. Pick up some of the loose stone that's already in there. Crouch, break out the drill, and start digging some more. Now one thing as we move along, notice that I kind of have a gap there, so I don't necessarily need to worry quite so much about holding down that F key anymore, because now the stone will kind of be caught in the little bowl that I'm digging out as I work my way down to the mining. So there's my collection of stone. I can go ahead and just grab that, hold down the F key, mouse over it, and we'll go ahead and continue into our, what is now going to be our stone mine. So I'm going to go ahead and pack out a lot more than what I can actually carry at this point. Alright, so I'll go ahead and grab that. There's my inventory full message. So we'll run back here and go ahead and drop off our ingots. Once I get ingots back in there, and once I get the stone in there, the survival kit will automatically begin processing that stone into ingots once again for us. Throw that back in there. And while that's working, I'm going to just go back. I'm not going to dig anymore this time. I'm just going to go ahead and grab what was left in there, which apparently was a fairly substantial amount. Alright, so there is our stone mine, and that's where we're going to be bouncing back and forth between the survival pod and the stone mine a fair amount as we collect those raw materials. So toss that in there. And if I want to kind of monitor the production, since I really don't have anything else to do right now, just kind of keep an eye on things. Watch the inventory of stone. Once it's done, I can go ahead and we can begin the process of building our platform. So 104, 3, 2, 1, and out of stone. All right. So now we're gonna lay a foundation, and that's probably where we'll wrap this video, because we're at about the half-hour mark at this point. Time flies apparently. So we're gonna lay our foundation with our light armor blocks. So notice light armor blocks requires need a full set of steel plates to lay an armor block. You just need one of the baseline components. So steel plates is what we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a 4x4 platform, and I'm going to build myself a small ramp to get up on it. So I'm going to need 17 steel plates to get that job done. So I'm going to control click once and then single. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and build 20. So I can just control click twice. That'll queue up 20 steel plates for me. Watch that construction process until they get done. Kind of just waiting for things to get done. The joys of trying to fill in moments of silence when you're just sitting here watching something happen. Alright, so there are our 20 steel plates. I'm going to grab those, place them in my inventory. I'm going to head over here, someplace relatively flat. This doesn't look too bad. Queue up 4. Okay, now I'm going to go down until that block is roughly, it's going to end up roughly half buried in the ground. So now if I place that block is now part of a stationary grid. It's part of the ground essentially. So this grid is not going to go anywhere. It's not meant to move. It's not meant to be mobile. It's just meant to be a foundation and a base. So there is my platform. Now if I went ahead and clicked 4, elevated it a bit so it's not in the ground, hit the button there and just let it drop, this is now a mobile grid. Okay, it's movable. Now my engineer can't do it, but if I added onto it and put some engines or thrusters or wheels or something onto that, that would move. But I'm going to go ahead and get my grinder out, get rid of that block because I don't want that there. What I want to use this last steel plate for is I want to make a ramp so I can more easily get up onto my platform. So I'm going to go into number 4 and then cycle through the different types of blocks available using my mouse button, my scroll wheel. Okay, so what I'm going to want is I want that light armor slope, and then I need to orient it correctly. So the cluster of keys, insert, delete, home end, page up, page down, that's what you use to rotate the block in various directions. Sometimes it can be a pain to get it in the right orientation, but we're just going to go ahead and rotate it and lay it. So now I have a ramp that I can just walk right up, and now I'm on top of my platform. Okay, so that's some of the basics. This say the time went fast in this particular video. So in the next video, it'll kind of be part 2, I guess, of creating our basic survival platform. What we're going to do is we'll get that refinery built, an assembler built, get some power on it, maybe even get a battery on it, and get a start on our basic platform. Okay, so that's it for this particular video. Again, it went a lot faster than I anticipated it would. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great day. If you're so inclined, leave some form of comment. Positive, constructive feedback is always welcome. So have a great day, and I will catch you next week.